Welcome to the Norris Group's 13th annual I Survived Real Estate Gala. The Norris Group would like to thank the following platinum partners: Norada Real Estate Investments, San Diego Creative Investors Association, the Outspoken investor Tony Alvarez, Wilson Investment Properties, Think Realty Magazine, and Realty 411. We'd also like to thank our gold sponsors, Seven Figure Flipping, Inland Valley Association of Realtors, Keller Williams Corona, Keystone CPA Inc., Brisas Escrow, Leivas Tax Wealth Management, In a Day Development, NorCal REIA, NSDREI, Pasadena FIBI, Real Wealth Network, SoCal Cash Flow, Spinnaker Loans, and uDirect IRA.
I want to follow up with a question. Institutional money. There's a lot of rumors that the media is like, they're all raising money because the foreclosures are going to pile on. I'm like, where? It is my theory that they are planning on spending that money in the build to rent model. Would you agree? Is that where a lot of the institutional players are going to play?
Yes, but not by choice. I think that people have raised money and now they don't know what to do with it. So we've got so many funds that by this time we're expecting to see something in that market. I think that they're not going to see anything for 6 months, and they may never see it. We'll see, right? I think that there's still a significant number of foreclosures coming, but I think that there's the people that raise large amounts of money, they need to see a very large amount of distress because they need to go to a bank and buy 20 or 30 properties, not one at a time, because they'll never spend even 5% of the money. So they're going into build to rent, not by choice, but simply because the money is being raised, and build to rent is the closest thing that they can do. So we're seeing, so for an asset class that's 2 years old, build to rent is now the lowest cap rate asset class in the United States, even lower than data centers, even lower than medical. And the reason people are doing it is combines the benefits of single family, where you have, family staying for the long term, so you don't have apartment like churn, your maintenance costs are lower, and you're building new products, so your maintenance is low anyway. But it has the benefit of scale as well. So I think that we think that that's the big winner for the next 10 years. It's a brand new asset class. People have been doing, building stuff, but they haven't done it at scale. Where do we do it? I think we do it in places like Houston. We do it in places in Florida for sure. Atlanta. We're going to see it in places like Huntsville, Alabama, where the Huntsville market is booming because of all the other markets around it booming. So we're seeing a humongous number of trends in that marketplace. And yes, institutional money is going in there because they raised it and now they can't service that money.
One specific question: are some of the rental vacancies in San Francisco due to Airbnb and vacation rentals being turned into long-term rentals?
I think they'll have to. I can tell you that the distress in the San Francisco multifamily market is massively greater than 2008. 2008 was absolutely nothing compared to what we're seeing. New York is even worse. So there is a market worse than San Francisco right now from a multifamily perspective, and it's New York. They are seeing record level of vacancies, record levels of concessions. I don't think that these markets will come back very quickly. So I do think that there's going to be some interesting twists and turns that we're going to see. The Airbnb market was very highly leveraged. A lot of this stuff was purchased at very expensive prices in the last 2 or 3 years. They need that revenue. They need to pay massive mortgages. And given how slow the market's been to come back on that side, you're going to see some pivots. It's inevitable. But I think that what's interesting is we're not seeing such price drops on the rental side in the single family San Francisco market. So if you take an Airbnb and you pivot, you're actually not in as bad of a market. It's the multifamily market, especially high density multifamily market, that's really suffering in San Francisco. So there's actually, once again, Tom said, don't look at the 30,000 foot view. If you have a single family rental in San Francisco, you're not doing too badly. So maybe we'll see some pivots from the Airbnb side.
Okay. Well, we're starting to get some questions, Dad, but you might have some things that you had in mind.
Well, let's let the group ask questions, and I'll maybe ask one later.
Okay. Is international, this could be anybody, is international money coming to us? Where is the money going? I don't know if anybody has a lot of foreign investors coming their way, but I doubt it's probably from China.
I have just one data point. So international investment in the United States has dropped 50%. We think it's a short-term trend because when surveyed, by far, almost every investor said inability to travel is the primary reason, not because we're afraid of the US market. So the lack of travel means that we've seen a 50% drop. At this point, those were September numbers. So we've still seen a 50% drop. The Canadian market is the one that's shrunk the most in terms of foreign investment. Well, investors coming in from Canada, that's been affected the most. I'm not sure why, because their travel is actually the easiest. But I think it's a short-term trend. I do think that money will start to flow again.
I think it's, yeah, I believe it's very, very short term. We're under negotiations for a product now in Florida that is being sold by someone in Canada. And the reason, because they're a principal who likes to be hands-on. And every time they come down to see the property, when they go back, they're facing a 2-week quarantine. So that's why they're selling it.
Wow. Yeah. We just
Go ahead.
sold, we very luckily sold a 250 unit apartment building in Mountain View in January to a Korean company. And, but we had put it on the market. We had like lots and lots of offers from Chinese firms over the summer, and we weren't quite ready to sell it. And then by the fall, they were all gone. There was only the Korean company left. So I think it was part of the Chinese policy. They were pulling back their investment in large assets like that in the US. I don't know where that will be headed next year, but
Okay.
I'm really, really glad we sold that in January.
Agreed. This is a really good question. You know what, and maybe I'll throw this one at you, Thierry. Do you think there are lots of people who will be forced to walk away from their homes when forbearance ends? With the end of forbearance, what amount of subject to volume do you think lenders will tolerate? And do you see your team sort of talking about those kind of things?
Yeah, we're definitely talking about subject to opportunities. I think when people walk away forced to walk away because of forbearance and they can't catch up, right? Let's just assume that's the way this whole thing goes down. My assumption is most of those people have equity and they'll just decide to sell their home. And there won't be foreclosures by and large because they've got equity in their home. I'm not sure what the exact stat is today, but that equity ratio is pretty high.
Yeah, what do you call a short sale when it's not a short sale? When they have the money, they just can't make their payment.
Yeah, you just put it on the market and sell.
They call it a listing, yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
There you go.
You know what's interesting about that policy that you just brought up, subject to, when we were in Washington, D.C., we did meet with FHA. At the time, Raphael Bostic was the man in charge of that. And he and I were across the table, and I said, what do you think of subject to? And he said, I'm all for it. And I was surprised by that. I said, well, can you put that in writing for me? And he smiled. He said, no, I can't do that. But he understood the concept was smart because it would avoid a lot of foreclosures.
Well, the securitized loan is what made that difficult, right? Because it got sliced up and spread out, and now they can't go back and get everybody to agree. So you got to do it, undercover, right?
Under the table.
Under the table, and just hope nobody finds out, but they usually don't. So.
Okay.
I mean, if I were going to put my bets on it, I would think that banks would be looking at loan modification for those forbearances because these people, most of them, it was no fault of their own. I mean, if you wanted to start your business up again, you weren't allowed. In LA, they would just shut your power off. You just literally weren't allowed. So how can you be faulted for that? I think it's going to go into modification.
I agree, Kathy. If there were ever a time to get a pass,
right. And then I don't know if you just saw,
nationwide pandemic. Yeah.
but I think Newsom, or there's some talk about and I wondered why this wasn't happening in 2009, but Newsom just said that that homeowners will get first dibs on those properties and not the funds, that they won't be able to sell in bulk, that homeowners should get the first shot, which makes sense.
I just don't know why they would read that after the foreclosure. It just makes no sense. Like, why not do that before it goes through REO status? We tried. A question, any data on cash out refi or HELOCs?
Any data?
I don't know. Lenska, tell me more. Tell me more what you're looking for. I have a question for you.
Well, I think she's trying to wonder if they're like 2004, 5, and 6, we were cranking out hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
And
And people have equity and they're not behaving the same way, buying up toys like they were back then, right?
that's right. No, it's been very muted. So the amount of equity has never been greater. That's why it'd be really hard to conceive of a foreclosure crisis with the amount of equity. Because if you go to a trustee sale, bidders are not trying to buy those at 60 cents on the dollar anymore.
Mm-mm.
So very, very few of those would actually make it to the REO status. So, and that's where you really have price damages when that becomes the dominant inventory for sale. I just don't see how that's possible.
I wanted to ask a question about quality of life. Getting to think about people from the tech space getting to move. I talked to some realtors. I mentioned it last week, moving to San Diego from the Bay Area or Palm Springs because it was close to an airport. If they absolutely had to be up north for a meeting, the amount of money that they can save, still living in a very high quality of life, they could easily buy a ticket back and forth many, many times a year to make that happen. But quality of life, if education isn't going to matter as much, people could hop on Zoom and be educated, whether it be K through 12 or through college. What does that look like as we're exploring secondary and tertiary markets? What's the quality of life piece that we're looking for where we don't think this is a flash in the pan? Are people really going to move the Blythe, Mentone? Is that like, that's like a good, like, I'm going to go there and really love that market? Or I don't know. Any thoughts
I
on
got
that?
to say one thing, Aaron. We've been helping investors buy in tertiary markets for 15 years, and that includes the little area. It's called Butler County, in between Cincinnati and Cleveland, and that area prices have been 20% over asking price over the last 6 months. So massive. That's Butler County, okay, in Ohio. So I think what's happened personally, that in the tertiary markets, builders just weren't going there. You weren't going to make any money as a builder in Cincinnati. If you're going to build a house and sell it for $200,000, where's your profit? So they were going to New York and they were going to San Francisco, and that's where they're building. So a lot of these tertiary markets do not have inventory because it just wasn't built, and people are moving back home. I mean, if I had to work at home with 2 young kids, I'd be moving back near mom and dad so they could take the kids out of the house so I could get some work done, right? I mean, I think that's part of what's happening.
Yes,
It is, absolutely is.
absolutely.
As
I have
far
written
as
down here
getting-
somewhere garagification. I've noticed more people in garages these days, like the kids are doing school inside. I moved.
as far as there being everything can be done online, you would think if there's anyone that would want to do that, it would be millennials. Well, I had an intern this summer going to Santa Clara University, an elite school, and they decided not to open the campus and they were going to do online training. He opted out for the semester. He says, no, I'm not going to have my parents pay this kind of money and have a in-class human relationship, experience. So he opted out. I think 20% of Harvard's freshman students this year skipped the semester because they were doing online, didn't open up the campus. So
Wow.
On the other hand, in San Diego State, the cheap school where I got my kids to go, they are living together in houses and they are having a blast, and they're studying together. And my daughter's got straight A's, and they're still, having a college experience. And so I've heard that a lot of the housing around the colleges is booming because kids can go there and live and get away from mom and dad and live together.
And let's be honest, the parents also are very
Are
happy
very
to get
happy.
kids out of the house. I have heard that.
Empty
So
nest.
they're not staying in the dorms. The kids are moving into the local housing.
It
That's
is housing.
what I had
Yeah,
heard.
they're renting
Okay.
houses and piling in there.
Linska brings up another great question that we can definitely round robin. Any real life examples of converting malls or strip centers into different spaces?
It's really difficult. The price point for malls is such that most asset classes are priced out. You can't do industrial. So it's going to be very interesting. I think that, in certain expensive markets, if the city allows you to build above the mall and there's plenty of parking, you might be able to do multifamily. But what I found is, in general, repurposing malls has just been a very boutique sort of thing. There are certain malls in certain areas, because of the way where they are, you can repurpose them. But I've been asked by people, well, why can't you turn malls into senior housing? Why can't you turn it into something else? And the answer is the mathematics of it mean that 90% of the time it just will not work. So this is a very difficult issue.
Anybody buying old hotels and turning them into anything interesting? No. Well, I tried.
I know one principal who had his hotel that was nearly empty, and he found healthcare workers that he was able to fill it up with. But I think that's not typical.
Jason wanted to let us know Harvard didn't even lower the tuition. Yeah, I haven't seen too many colleges lower tuition while this is all going on. So, and the universities, it's interesting you say that. Like here in Riverside, I know we have 4 universities in the city, and they've all had very different experiences with this. One of them is very reliant on foreign students, that none of them showed up, and they pay cash and they pay top dollar, and they're not here. So they're struggling with a lot of different things and not sure if they're even going to come back in spring semester yet. They haven't decided. I really don't know how they survive. I thought the education space was ripe for just disruption as it was, but it's a little scary.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I kind of asked this of the other group as well. The $40 trillion comment that we made on our cover of that report is going to come to fruition at some point. And I'm wondering real estate has gotten some amazing breaks. So we're all talking about escalation of values, but if we own it, we get to depreciate it as if it's going to be worthless in 30 or 27 years. If we sell our residence, which I just did, you can make $500,000 if you're a couple and not pay tax. And you can 1031 exchange and never pay tax. So I'm wondering if real estate's going to be in the crosshairs of people that say, you know what, we need the revenue and we have the power to make changes.
And we were having such a nice time.
Sorry.
I think it has been in the crosshairs, Bruce, for a long, long time. And I think, was it you, Mark, or Terry, who said earlier that the reason is that most of the lawmakers own a lot of real estate, and they're this whole 1031 question has come up time and time and time again, and every time they bail from it. And I think it's because it hurts shoot themselves in the foot if they do it. That's my feeling.
I'm thinking the opposite. I think this time we might see those changes because the anger is so intense towards the haves, and it's based on at least what I've seen from what could be in the Biden tax plan. There could be changes, but if let's just say that the 1031 goes away and you do have to pay your tax, it's a capital gain tax. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not as bad as some other taxes. So unless that goes up as well, then there would be an effect. But I would probably, if I had to bet on it, say that we will feel the impact this time.
Actually, I just read an article. San Francisco did institute a policy of taxing at 1.1. I forget what kind of tax they call it, but it's for CEOs that make more than 100% of their bottom employee. Is that what I read?
Oh,
100% or
100 times. 100 times.
100 times. Okay.
Yeah, they get some kind of, I don't know which kind of tax, but it was new and I had not heard that before. So I am worried about the state of California now that some of these bills that were attached to real estate don't look like they're going to go through. Where are they going to get the money? Sales tax. I mean, we should all expect sales tax across the board to increase in all the cities, but I'm looking at the other revenue. I mean, that's weird. We've had a great economy, especially in California. So we knew the pensions were already causing a lot of issues. So when this happened, you're like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? I don't have a good answer. I'm just asking. Bruce May and Jason Hartman were talking about homelessness. Yeah, struggling motels and hotels being converted. And then Jason was saying that they're looking at hotels for low-income housing in Arizona. I certainly think that's a possibility. Our city, Riverside, actually tore down a lot of struggling hotels because they had become such blight during the downturn. So it'll be interesting to see some other creative things. Let me see. Contractors. I don't know too many people going out of high school right now raising their hand saying, you know what sounds like a good idea? Hard labor. Sign me up. The builders have just started talking a little bit more at the International Builders Show about manufactured housing, and not the dirty word, not mobile housing. It's it's green, it's sustainable. More robotics are going to be involved. I think we're going to have to look at that. I mean, are any of you guys looking at anything like modular housing or manufactured because labor has become such an issue?
I've started attending webinars to, that I'll see across my Facebook feed. I think it's fascinating. The question is, are the local municipalities going to allow it to happen? I think it would solve a lot of problems.
Long past due. It's the code. It's the code. It's the Detroit nature of the building code that I think keeps it from happening. It certainly makes it's penciled out for decades.
Andy Teasley is on the call giving me a hard time. He's like, who said mobile homes are a dirty word? He's always, oh my goodness. Anybody else have they had any experience, especially with the accessory dwelling unit conversation? I've definitely had my eye on modular specifically, but manufactured homes. Hey, Warren Buffett owns, what's the company he owns? Berkshire Hathaway owns modular home manufacturing.
Colorado, I can't think of it.
I can't think of it either, but they're beautiful. You would not know that this is not the Andy Teasley mobile homes that we're talking about.
Oh,
Clayton Homes. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, Clayton Homes. So when you've got somebody with that much money and power behind it, I just think we're going to have to look at other things. And the government entities are looking more into the data. I just interviewed Doug Duncan as well, and I said, if that a bullet point they're trying to get more data on, and they said yes. So I would expect manufactured to come into play, especially as robotics gets more sophisticated. When I was at CES a couple years ago, I saw my first 3D printer that was printing metal, and it blew my mind. And chocolate. There was the other side of that too, but I was most impressed by the metal. That's pretty interesting. And I was at this media event, and it was a desktop model. I don't know if you could call it desktop. It was still huge. And he's like, it's just $100,000. I'm like, of course, I need one in my garage. But the cost, I mean, it's just so interesting, some of the things going on. Any more questions? Dad?
I was just going to, Jay Leno 3D printed a car that he drove out of his garage.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I don't know what that costs, but
and it probably took a really long time.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Tom, maybe this is a question for you. Malls. There's been a lot of talk. Retail's been struggling for a really long time. There's been the conversation that Amazon has been eyeing these malls because they're typically in extremely well-located areas of cities. I would hate to see my local mall become a distribution center. And then at that point, it gets really political. I don't know if Amazon is going to want that much politics. Talk about NIMBYism. That should be a fun ride. Are you hearing much about that in your space?
Well, I think the main attraction of a mall is for this famous last mile distribution, trying to get closer, and it's I think just like I think Neil spoke earlier, is the problem with a lot of these is they just don't pencil out very well. They're it's kind of almost cheaper to scrape them and build something more purposeful. So I agree with Neil. It's very hard to repurpose them. The idea is that you can make distribution or service or entertainment, but it's they're expensive pieces of real estate.
All right. Well, I think we're getting about close to that 8 o'clock mark, Pops. Maybe we should go around the room and sort of close out tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron, can I take one question?
Sure.
So there was this question, and this is a passion area for me. Are you considering climate change in your investment decisions? I think that we are just about getting there. I'm writing a two-part presentation on the devastating impact of climate change on real estate migration patterns, and we're beginning to see that. So this is actually the best year where people are paying attention to this. So I mean, a lot of real estate people are Republicans. They don't believe in climate change. It really doesn't matter if you believe in climate change or not, because it's going to impact your real estate investment over the next 5 years, whether you like it or not. Insurers believe in climate change because they are seeing insurance costs go up at a radical rate. The people that were insuring the homes that were burned down this year in California, they believe in climate change. Institutional capital, the people that buy billions or tens of billions of dollars of stuff, they're hiring companies. I think there's one famous one called 427 to give them a almost a red to green indicator, like a 5-step indicator of where to buy and where not to buy. And actually, the state that's going to be threatened the most by this is going to be parts of Florida, because what's happening is Florida has the worst rating for sea level rise. And then there's parts of Louisiana, there's parts of Tennessee and Texas that have really high ratings for or bad ratings for hurricanes. California has the worst rating, or some parts of California have the worst rating for wildfires. As we see more of this, I mean, this year we burned down more forests than we had in the last 5 or 6 years. Phoenix had 53 days of 115% temperature, 115-degree temperature. So what we're seeing is, it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, institutional capital is now beginning to look at hurricanes, water inundation, and they're also beginning to look at wildfires. And they're using that to decide where to invest. So the answer is, at our level, we're not making those decisions yet. But you're going to start seeing within the next few years, cap rates in the United States change based on climate change or perception of climate change. This is a big deal. It is a massive deal. It's just not in the general, the public doesn't understand this yet. I'm doing actually a series of webinars on it next year because I'm fascinated by how important this is and the fact that nobody's really paying attention to what's happening.
I just had a meeting today with a casualty insurance association tackling the same thing. I agree with you. Fires, besides fire insurance, I know I had several properties where it at least doubled. How about having a property where they just decide to turn off the power for 3 days because there's wind? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a quality of life issue, y'all.
By the way,
Well-
I have an electrical contractor who can't keep up right now in California here with installing new,
Generators?
power
Generators.
generators. Yep.
solar power,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Um,
I've got a question because we're all looking at different areas. Do you make decisions based on what you think might happen to the oil industry?
It's a tough one.
Yes.
Which
you know,
sector,
it's
shale, fracking, or drilling?
Well, okay, but just if you have an area that's dominated by one type of employment, Grand Junction, Colorado, for me in the early 80s, fracking closed in Grand Junction, real estate went down 80%, and we were able to buy the properties, after the fact. But it took a while for that to recover because it was such a dominant industry. So if you have a desire going forward to eliminate fossil fuel, that would be I'm just wondering, Neil, as what you brought up, the climate change, are you also concerned about what we're going to source as fuel?
Yeah, I think the answer is, in Republican administrations, I don't worry about it. In Democrat administrations, I worry about fracking more so than any other type. I think natural gas is at this point cleaner burning than oil, and is also cheaper than oil. But I think that fracking is one that is likely to be targeted by Democrats. It's also, as the impact of climate change increases over time, it's going to get targeted by whatever administration there is. So areas in Oklahoma, the Permian Basin, as well as areas in North Dakota, I think are going to see severe declines in home prices. Also, because I think that we are now beginning to see depletion in the US on the fracking side at a national level. I mean, the most of the basins are now seeing depletion levels. Depletion in fracking is much quicker than traditional oil wells. So I think traditional oil wells, I tend not to worry about them too much. Fracking, I do, simply because of its extraordinarily volatile nature. It's not necessarily a bad thing though, Bruce. I think that it's a opportunity. You see it go up and down.
No,
We have
and
some
that-
property. I was going to say we have a property in Houston, and we watch that closely, and it's softened a little bit, the economy, and I think that's it's only 17% tied to energy, and only 1% of that is tied to fracking. But the south side of Houston, where there's fracking, is certainly impacted the economy some. I also follow have a couple of people who are traders in the oil futures, and they've been shorting for some time Brent oil, but they also think it's going to recover start recovering and going back up in a year or two. But who knows? If I can throw out one comment here that I think is interesting. One of my recent chats with Doug Duncan, he indicated that he thought one of the most important metrics in watching our economic recovery was the net reformation of small businesses. So out of the 29 million small businesses, they're the ones that are impacted the most by all of this, by the virus and pandemic. And he said, if I start looking at new formations minus the ones that die and look at that curve, that's probably one of the leading indicators of our recovery. I just wanted to share
Makes
that.
sense. Yeah.
Terry, I
Okay.
wanted to ask you a question about marketing. With foreclosures not likely going to be a thing, if you had any feedback on what small business owners in the flipping and wholesaling were having success doing, getting people to respond, whether it be text messaging, direct mail, paid ads.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Those are the three big ones. Direct mail, probably number one. So when COVID hit, we pretty much shut down the expensive marketing and went straight to text messaging. That was a fatal mistake on our end because most of our deals came from direct mail from the previous quarter. And a lot of flippers did that. They started pulling back their advertising. You should never, ever, as a business owner, pull back your marketing. But we thought that moving to text, people being in the homes, right, and the response rate was through the roof. We just didn't see the purchase rate on the text messages as big as we thought we would. But we get deals from text messaging, but by and large for us, it's still the good old fashioned direct mail postcard sent every single month.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. I have a question about ADUs. How will ADUs work in the future in California if rental laws become even more restrictive for property owners? Oddly, I think I think the state is figuring out it's one of the only paths to affordable housing here in the state of California, because they can't figure out how to build at a reasonable rate. So they're leaning on it. So the latest bill, we talked about it last session, where HOAs can't use ADUs as part of their calculation into the rental percentage. So one of the games that the HOAs were playing is like, oh, sorry, we already have 25% rentals. It's a cap. Sorry, can't get an ADU. This new law that was signed by Newsom says, nope, ADUs do not count towards that percentage. So everywhere these NIMBYs turn, the answer is too bad. They've lost absolute control. So, Dad, that's all the questions I've got. And it's 8:00 and it's on a Friday. So,
All right.
let's finish up with a question. Maybe the 2021 question.
The 2021 question.
What are you excited about in 2021?
Okay. There you go.
All right. Marco, let's
asking-
start with you. We haven't heard from you in a while.
Okay.
What am I excited about in 2021? I just think that the opportunity to invest and create a profitable real estate portfolio over the years to come is very high. In fact, all the deck is stacked in your favor. We've got historically low interest rates. We've got very tight inventory across the country. We have strong demand. The demand is increasing. We have Gen X Gen Y and Gen Z coming into the scene, pushing demand up. We're still becoming more and more of a renter's nation. Just because the primary markets are very expensive and overpriced doesn't mean that opportunities don't exist. You just look at other markets. I've always said that it's always a good time to buy real estate because it's not so much about when you buy real estate, it's where you buy the real estate. As long as you have the right formula, you can always do well, create wealth and passive income from real estate. So I'm perpetually bullish on residential real estate, specifically single family homes, but 1 to 4 unit properties. It's just working with the right team, being in the right markets and in the right locations. And it's very hard to screw that up. You just need to know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, get some help. The people are out there to help you.
Okay. Tom, 2021, what are you excited about?
I think the recovery is going to continue. We may have a slight setback here as we go through phase 3 before we get the vaccine. I don't know, but I think it's going to continue to grow and get stronger. And I feel that as always, you look at locations that got strong economic growth and good business policies. So I don't think it's hard to figure those out. And I think you don't want to limit yourself to any one asset class or sub-asset class. I think you keep the net open and you look at there are great opportunities in every asset class and most metros, as long as you analyze it and underwrite it conservatively.
All right. I've got these windows on my computer, so no rhyme or reason. Neil, how about you?
I'm really excited about the fact that COVID has completely destroyed the paradigm of technology being tied to big centers like Silicon Valley. I think that we just brought freedom to this country. COVID's going to be seen in some weird ways as a great happening 20 years from now. Obviously, people are going to die, and that's horrifying, but it will be seen as a change in America and the way that it's going to restructure America. We're using 5% of America's land, and that's causing most of our problems. It's slowing down the economy. And I think the big impact of COVID is it will accelerate it because now we'll start using some of that other land. And most importantly, you know, it's not just San Francisco that's going to be a technological powerhouse. We'll see technological powerhouses everywhere. Kansas City will be a technological powerhouse. So will Austin's already there, Provo, Utah. That creates a much fundamentally better America. It creates an America where more people have choices, there's more entrepreneurship, and it is not in these super expensive blue states.
I like that. Kathy, you're up. 2021.
I am so looking forward to 2021 not being 2020. I can't wait.
All right.
So I want to say that we have so much to look forward to really once all this is behind us. We are moving into a time of new technology. This is so much of what happened in 2020 was already somewhat predicted. Just last summer, I was invited to Singularity University, which is Peter Diamandis's university, very much looking into the future. And the future is very exciting with what's coming in the technologies, the ability to get water out of clouds. And I mean, you know, there's good things coming. So
I thought we already got water out of clouds.
but be able to get it
Even more water
when you need it, like California. But for drinking, you know, there's so many new technologies that are coming that these little things the size of a car can power an entire village. So there, and also Peter Diamandis was saying that schooling, universities were already going to go to VR technology where you would have your own instructor teaching you at your own level in your own home. This was predicted over the next 10 years. So we've kind of moved there. And I think a lot of kids are learning, you know, that they can get one-on-one training at home. So I think more people are going to have access to education that they've never had before. And technologies and places like Reno, the reason we're building there is because it is now a technology hub, and they had to literally, the way Tesla was able to even get the land for so cheap was they had to donate a tremendous amount of money to the college there to train people on those new jobs. And we're going to see more and more of that. So things are going to get better. They're going to get better. 2020 is almost over.
I like it, a little bright spot. Harry, don't disappoint us now. I'm ending with you.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I joke with my son. I'm so excited. It's such a great time to be alive. I wish I was 20 years younger so I could see the next 20 years down the road, like Kathy. I think Tony Robbins said something 6 months ago before COVID hit about the apprentice. This is about to be the greatest apprentice generation we've ever seen, with people taking online courses and classes and stuff, masterminds and all that kind of thing to be great at a thing that they do without having to take English and stuff again in college, right? Like it's really exciting. I love single family and multifamily houses. It's a great time to be in that class, right? But I think there's opportunities in small commercial, like Tom said, when these indicators come back, that small businesses are starting to come back in full force. If you're able to go in there and take some opportunity now with things not going very well for small businesses that own small real estate, and you can buy some small commercial if that's what you want to do. And I'm elated about the idea of modular housing. I just don't know when it's going to hit. So, and I'm honored to be here with you all. It's been an amazing experience. So thank you.
Well, this sucker has produced a ton of content. We started with, Doug Duncan and Sean O'Toole, some of our favorite panelists. We then went into the legacy series. We had the residential town hall and now the commercial town hall. This has definitely created probably the most content we've ever done with this event. And just thank you all for being part of the legacy and the $1 million mark. I really appreciate it. Dad, how about you close out the night?
I want to thank all of you for coming. It was quite an education for me. I'm very impressed with what our guests know. And I'll close with this. And I've told the story before, but it's really important as we deal with something that's challenging. After 9/11, I went to an Angel game and had season tickets, and I'd been there many times. And on this particular game, when the national anthem was played, 45,000 people stood up and they sang. And I had tears in my eyes, and I looked around and I said, wow, there's no differences today. We're just all Americans. And that's what I hope that we remember, is that we have much more in common than we have different. And there's a lot at stake right now, and we better remember that we have a lot more in common.
Amen. All
America's
right.
still unique.
Very nice.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. This will all start going up on Amazon Prime and YouTube starting this weekend. And the financial brunch that we're doing, hopefully we'll know who the president is and sort of where we need to go as far as real estate investors here in California. That's next Saturday. So thanks so much, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to I Survive Real Estate 2020. To watch the full video in its entirety or to learn more about speakers and sponsors, please go to isurviverealestate.com. And be sure to tune in next week for more I Survive Real Estate 2020. Thank you.